Welcome learners. Today we will be discussing Introduction to IT Applications, a part of CIT 002, and this is Professor Neeti Agarwal. I am Professor of Management and I would be discussing on two major aspects of IT, and they are cyberspace and cybercrime. So, in the first session we will discuss cyberspace, the concept of cyberspace, how it occurs and what actually is cyberspace, because we have heard a lot of things about cyberspace, and looking at the present conditions and the present situation in which we are working as of now, it is becoming more of relevant in the sense is that we are working more in cyberspace than in the real space. So, that is what I would be discussing about, and we will start with the module of study. In this I will give the introduction, then we will go on to differentiate between real space versus cyberspace. Then we will see what exactly is the digital identity, and then we will take an overview of it. And then again we will be differentiating between two kinds of identities, like how to verify the identity and how to reveal or authenticate the identity. And in this session the last part would be the architecture of space. How does the architecture exists in a cyberspace? So, now starting with the introduction part, it is important to understand what exactly is space. So, when we talk about space as a whole, we will see it is kind of a surroundings. It is kind of a surrounding which is exactly covered by the ether or the space, the vacuum. So, that is basically a space, and it is a system. So, it can be tangible, it can be intangible in nature. So, when we talk about cyberspace, we say it is the interconnectedness of human beings through computers and telecommunication without physical boundaries. It is also known as the virtual space. Now, for example, very simple example, like I am being connected with you. I am not able to see you. You will be seeing my videos. So, but we are connected. There is a communication between me as a teacher and you as a learner. So, this is a virtual space, this is the cyberspace. We both are connected through computers, through different modes, but there is a difference between the two. So, this is a virtual space. And this term was, it is very interesting to know that this term cyberspace was coined by a fiction author, the science fiction author William Gibson, and who described the whole range of information resources which are available through different kinds of computer networks. Now, you see, it was kind of an imagination which occurred through an author's mind, and then it became a reality for us. And as of now, in the crisis situation also, we are working in cyberspace. We know we are having a lot of online meetings, lot of online classes, lot of online existence. So, in that case, we are working in cyberspace. Cyberspace is a kind of a realm in which communication and interaction between two or more individuals is facilitated by the digital data exchanged over computer networks. Now, when we talk about the networks, they are interconnected. There are fibers, there are electricity, there is camera. Like if I am talking about this lecture, there are so many networks available. You can see the computer, you can see the presentation, you can see the camera, you can see the faces. So, there are so many networks available which when joined together they formulate into a space. So, this interaction or communication can be used for a host of different purposes, and one of the purposes through which I am interacting is also a cyberspace. Now, coming to differentiate between the real space and the cyberspace. When we talk about the real space, we say it is covered by a physical boundary. Suppose I am sitting in the room, this room is the physical space, this room is the real space. The room which is surrounded by four walls, which has different areas and which can be measured, which is tangible in nature, which you can see. So, that is the real space, and of course, cyberspace is virtual in nature. So, if you see the differentiation between the two, you would be finding that real space is dynamic in nature, whereas cyberspace is self-oriented. Like I can create my own cyberspace. As of now, the cyberspace I am communicating with you is my cyberspace, it is created cyberspace. Whereas in real space, this can be one room, next to it can be another room, then another room. So, there are different rooms and the physical boundaries available. Real space is secret in nature, whereas cyberspace is transparent in nature. In cyberspace, you can see everything, it is visible, whereas in real space, if you close the door, if you lock the door, you cannot see inside. So, it is secret in nature. Real space is geographical in nature, whereas cyberspace is in real time. If I am talking to you now, that is the real time, that is the real time. If it is not existing, if I am not talking to you, if I am not communicating to you, then that is not the real time. Real space is authoritative in nature, that means you own it, or the government owns it, or the individual owns it, or the organization owns it, or an NGO owns it. So, it is authoritative in nature, whereas cyberspace is people power. Any number of individuals or people existing and communicating in a particular space through online mode is cyberspace. That is the simplest example. In real space, you have control of that physical boundary because you own it, whereas cyberspace is free to use, anybody can use it. Accessibility, we will be talking about the accessibility part later, and we will see how the accessibility also affects different versions of cyberspace. In real space, we have face-to-face contact or we have physical contact in nature, whereas in cyberspace is proxy in nature. Now, if you close the camera, you do not even know who is speaking at behind. So, it can be a proxy. So, real space is hierarchical in nature, whereas cyberspace is organic in nature. That means it is carbon footprint is more in real space, and in cyberspace you do not have the carbon footprint. And in real space it is controlled by the mass media, whereas cyberspace has the role of print media into it. Like you are seeing the presentation, that is a kind of a print mode. So, this is the difference between real space versus cyberspace. Moving on to the digital identity, this is very interesting to understand. You must have come across many of students or the learners of computer sciences, you might be coming across variants of digital identity verifications. You must have come across, if you have gone for the passports, if you have gone for getting your passports, you must have gone through the biometric analysis, biometric tests, etc. So, you must have come across number of identification verifications occurring in present times. If you are working in any organization, you must be going through the biometric attendance. Like you have the fingerprints. Now, if you see a picture on the right side of the slide, you would find there are certain fingerprints. Now, that is a kind of an identity. So, this fingerprint is very unique in nature. My fingerprint is different from your fingerprint, or my fingerprint can be different from other fingerprint. So, fingerprint is one of the unique identity of an individual. So, it is considered to be a digital identity. So, when we talk about the digital identity, the definition of digital identity, as per Wikipedia, it is the information on an entity used by computer systems to represent an external agent, and that agent can be anybody. It can be a person, it can be an organization, it can be an application, it can be a device. So, like fingerprints, like passwords, like mail IDs, like authentication captchas. So, all these are kind of digital identity elements, and that plays an important role in the identification of the person, of an organization, of an application, of a device. So, I will give you a simplest example. Many times when you log into something, they ask the password, and if you are not able to get the password, you are not able to log in. So, that means they are asking for the digital identity, verification of the digital identity. So, you need to have a specific identity to log into that particular application. So, this is what is digital identity. Now, when we come to the overview of a digital identity, you will find number of features of digital identity, and that vary with individual to individual. All the features may not be available with one entity. So, it can vary from one part to another. Now, some of the features of digital identity can be, one is the identifier, as I gave you the example, the fingerprints, the passwords, the mail IDs. These are the identifiers of an entity. Then you have a uniqueness. Every individual, every organization, every application, every service has a specific kind of a uniqueness. So, uniqueness is the characteristics. Now, if you take the physical identity, you will find you can identify, when we talk about identifier, we say that this person is Neeti. How do you identify that person? You identify that person with his or her face instantly, if you know the face, with name, with the personality. So, in uniqueness, when we say these are the characteristics, traits of that particular entity. What color, where from, how does he or she looks, all these come under uniqueness part. Then we come to the authentication part. How to authenticate the digital identity. That is again done through biometrics. Usually it is done through fingerprints, and now of course, if you go to the driving license and the passport and other things, if you go and to get those things, you would find that you have the biometrics thing, and you have the eyeballs also being scanned. Even in our Aadhaar cards also, you have the eyeballs being scanned. So, these are some of the authentication specifics which are required for defining or determining the digital identity of a particular entity. And of course, anonymity is there, because disclosing the person's identity would result in different kinds of misconducts. Then there are two concepts, unlinkability and linkability, which we would be discussing later on in the architecture part, but these are one of the features of digital identity, where you can link the whole concept or the application with the entity, or you do not link, it is free to use, it is freely accessible. Then you have pseudonymity. Pseudonymity is a kind of impersonation, that means you are using a false name. If you come across, if you take the print media, you will come across, if you see the authors, they use a pseudonym name like alias so and so. So, in that case, similar kind of thing can be used in digital identity also. You can create a different email ID with a pseudonym, with a different name, which is not your actual identity. Then you have, when we talk about digital identity, trust and reputation is very important. Trust in the sense is that whatever the information is being provided is true to the knowledge of the individual or the entity. The reputation is, for example, there are people whose reputation is not good. In that case, their digital identity may vary, because there is no trust, and even the services who are getting the digital identity of that person may be thinking that this digital identity is not verifiable. So, this is what is a digital identity. Moving further, we consider how we consider identity as a commodity. This is a very prevalent example in the present times, because nowadays identity is considered to be a commodity. If you see the advertisements where people or the celebrities, they are endorsing a product, in that case their identity becomes the commodity. X and X person is using this. That means that commodity is good enough. So, why that commodity is good enough? Because the identity becomes the commodity. It is a concept known as commodity self. That means your own self becomes the commodity. You endorse a product, the celebrity endorses the product, and we say this celebrity is endorsing the product, that means this product is good. So, you are not going for the product, you are going for the celebrity. So, this becomes identity as a commodity. Now, in businesses, basically this is very popular in businesses. Businesses use identity information as proxy for the preferences of the customers. For example, the businesses, instead of trying to find out the exact reason why an individual purchased a specific car, say car X, the car dealer might instead find out that what is the income, what is the profession of the purchaser or the customer, and what is the income level of the customer. So, in that case, the dealer comes to find out that most of the lawyers have bought car X. Now, this is again a case for study, that why did the lawyers only buy, or number of lawyers bought that particular car. So, in that case, that is important in the sense is this is just an idea that the dealer came to know that the lawyers are buying this car more. Now, if you go deeper into study, you may find the reason that identity has become a commodity. Although the car dealer may not understand why they purchased the car X, he or she can assume with some level of confidence that there is something about the lawyers that leads them to purchase car X instead of car Y. So, that means there must be some kind of identity issues or identity characteristics which are forcing the lawyers, or which are instigating the lawyers to buy a particular car. So, this is what is identity as a commodity. Now, we come to the other part where you have to verify versus reveal an identity. Revealing means authenticating an identity. The revealing word is not proper, but we are using it as it is there in the text, but basically it is verifying versus authenticating an identity, because first you verify and then you authenticate. Now, in verifying, cyberspace creates a lot of opportunities for good things as well as bad things. In cyberspace, there are a lot of identity thefts happening. Impersonation, we will come to that part in cybercrime. So, you have identity thefts happening. So, in that case, one inherent property of digital media is that it can be duplicated perfectly and easy. I will give you a very simple example. Now, suppose I am making my will and I have my digital signatures on it, and I have made e-will, the electronic will, and posted it. Though it is safe, but then you need to have the witnesses there too, and their digital signatures as well. So, everything is open for the lawyers. So, in that case, those digital signatures can easily be copied, and if the digital signatures are copied and pasted on something else, that will can easily be changed, that will can be used for the benefit of the self or the person or the organization who is doing the theft. So, exact copies of everything sent over a digital communication channel can be recorded. Now, you must be finding, suppose we are using any of the social media sites, or we are interacting through social media, and then you will find this message is encrypted. end-to-end encryption. So, you will find this word that this message is uses end-to-end encryption. That means that message from the start to the end is coded, is secured. So, this kind of issues are also there, this kind of measures are also there to protect the security. But in most cases, if it is not linkable, the architecture is not linkable, the digital communications channel can be recorded. And even if it is encrypted, it is recorded at a particular source or a particular server. So, anybody who wishes to have that data can have it even if there is an encryption. So, how to verify and authenticate the identity then? Because the identity is already revealed. So, how to verify and authenticate it? So, the best answer is the biometrics. Nowadays, lot of security issues are there. So, the computers, the cyberspace is using many security changes and security policies and the privacy policies which help the individuals and the organizations to trust them and feel that they are secured. So, that is why when we were talking about digital identity, the concept of reputation was important. So, reputation comes into place here. So, when you are revealing your identity to somebody, you need to know the reputation of that organization or of that site, whether if you reveal your identity, whether that site is secured enough or not. So, this is what is verifying versus revealing an identity. So, everything is stored in real space, but it is lost in cyberspace. So, when you store, the biometrics are always stored in the real space, but when they go, they are transferred onto the cyberspace, they are lost. So, they are secured in nature. So, this is one of the answers to the security issues in the cyberspace. Now, coming to the architecture of cyberspace, you can just see two beautiful pictures in cyberspace. Now, if you just close your eyes and open it and you see the first picture, you will find it is a paper architecture. Can you just see it is a paper architecture? Now, if you see a paper architecture, it is developed in the cyberspace. And if you see the second picture, you will find a liquid architecture which has been developed in the cyberspace. This is very important to understand, because when we make anything out of paper in the real space, it is tangible in nature, it is visible in nature. You can see that picture, but when it is on cyberspace, you cannot see it. You just visualize the first image, you will find that it is not available. You cannot see the papers, you can see the image, but you cannot see the papers. Even similar in the case of the second image, that is the liquid architecture, you cannot see the liquid, but you can see the architecture. You can see the visuals, you can see the picture in it. So, it is very similar to the neurons in the brains. And if you see the cyberspace, when you connect the dots from one point to other point to the third point to the fourth point, you will see a network is made from this place to this place to this place, and so there is a network is made and that space is created. Similarly, the architecture happens. Similarly, the neurons in the brain, the cells in the brain, they are connected from one another, but can you see it? Unless you open the brain, or you are a neurosurgeon, you cannot see the brain. So, same is the hardware to cyberspace. As neurons are to the brain, the same is the hardware to the cyberspace. Similarly, as thoughts are intangible, because whatever I am thinking, you are not knowing, it is intangible in nature. Neither you cannot touch it, you can touch it, nor you can see it. So is the cyberspace. Similarly, the architecture of cyberspace is intangible in nature. You can see it in both the images. Now, if I make the same thing in the real space, you can even visualize it, you can see it, you can touch it, you can feel it. But if you make it in the cyberspace, you cannot see it, you cannot touch it, you cannot feel it, it is intangible in nature. So, this is the architecture of cyberspace. So, cyberspace is a kind of an empty hole where things exist, things in the form of videos, things in the form of live lectures, think in the form of songs, audio songs, etc. They do exist. So, if you say a very popular thing, YouTube, everybody knows what YouTube is. If you just click on it and you want to see a particular thing, a specific thing, you just type it and you will find the videos of those that specific thing available on it. But that is a cyberspace. You can just see it, but neither you cannot touch it nor you can feel it. So, that is what is the architecture of cyberspace. Now, there are two kinds of architecture. From theoretical point of view, there are two kinds of architecture in cyberspace. One is the no-link architecture and the other is the linkable or link architecture. And when we talk about no-link architecture, there exists within the digital identification a kind of an architecture which does not have any mechanism for determining the link between the data in cyberspace and the real world recipient or sender. So, in this case, like for example, you communicate and you see lot of images, lot of videos or lot of information is available on the internet, but then there is no link to it. You do not even know where the data is coming from and where the data is going. So, the no link point implies only that there is no mandatory link between cyberspace and the real world. The benefits of a no link system is basically that issues of freedom of speech and freedom of action can be taken care of, but then there is an issue in this also. We will discuss it later. It is an architecture which completely eliminates the power of social norms, the market regulation and the legal regulations to govern the interaction on the internet. So, anybody and everybody can access that particular link. Now, most of the cases if you will find there are certain sites where if you try to go to that particular site, you are not able to access it. That means that is secured and it is not free for you, it is linked to something. So, in no link, if you are able to, like YouTube videos, they are no link data, you do not even know where the data is coming from and where the data is going, but you can see the whole thing. So, this is the advantage of no link data. Coming to the link architecture, the link architecture is the example of me communicating with you. This is the link architecture. We know where from the data is being delivered to you. So, access to the link information can be limited, presumably only to an appropriately regulated law enforcement agency with specific regulatory processes in place for obtaining that particular information. Usually these are copyrighted in case. The intellectual property right comes into picture in this case. The immediate point is that not everyone will have the access to an information contained in the architectural link, it is not free. The benefit of identification is still present, but the ability to gain the knowledge of the person's real world identity from the architecture of the system is limited to those specific bodies with access. So, that means if it is verifiable, if the identity is verifiable, then the link architecture is available to you. If it is not verifiable, then it is not available to you. So, in that case, no link architecture comes into picture where you do not require a verifiable digital identity. So, this is what all is about the cyberspace in this case, and we will just finish with this lecture about cyberspace, and we can just wind up and say that cyberspace is nothing, it's a virtual space where you can interact with other party or the third party through internet communications, computer networks, or any form of digital data. Thank you so much.